All right, I'm just testing spacebar to talk. Works good. You guys can hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, can hear you good.
Sweet.
All right, thanks, Tim. I'm going to officially let the students into the room. So you could go ahead and take down your screen share, Tim. Thank you. All right, we have attendees slowly coming into the room. Hi, everyone. This is Kathleen. I'm here to make sure Zoom is running smoothly for you. We'll be getting started shortly. Just want to make a quick note before I pass it off to our hosts today. And for the students, attendees that are with us, you guys see a chat icon. When you click on it, please do us a favor in the in the to field, if you can hit the drop down and select all panelists and attendees. We want you to type to all panelists and attendees. That way other attendees can see your messages and comments. It helps connect the replies and answers by our panelists here today. While you guys are typing in there, let us know where you're joining from and hope everyone's doing well. Looks like our numbers are pretty steady at the moment. So Hector, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you. And as usual, Hector, I'm about to start the recording. Just give it a few seconds and then take it away.
All right, hello everybody and welcome. My name is Hector Verdugo. I'm the Senior Vice President of Admissions here at Academy of Art University, San Francisco, California, United States of America. I see that we have a bunch of folks here today from all over the globe, so thank you so much for joining us. Looks like we have the Brooklyn's in the house. I think that's how you guys say it, right? Oregon. We have San Elismo, New York City, San Francisco, Vancouver, Washington. Thanks for being here today. New Orleans, Anita, thank you for being here today. Brazil, I see. North Carolina, Dominican, India is here. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a very different time zone. Mississippi, thanks for being here. Quincy, Santa Barbara's in the house. Georgia, Texas, all over the place. I mean, as usual, we usually have people from all over the globe. I think that's probably one of the coolest things about doing these workshops is you just have so many different students from all over, different backgrounds. It makes it so fun. So thank you all for being here. I'm super pumped for today. To be honest with you, I know I'm the host. I host a lot of these, but I'm probably more excited today because I'm a big sneaker guy. I love this stuff. So thanks for joining us for Behind the Laces with Aric Armon today. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that we go over some of the rules of the house here. We are going to be taking questions. We're going to be interacting with all of you out there. But to make it more fun, let's make sure that we're asking good questions and we're interacting. The way to do so is this. Right down below where my finger is, you should see that chat button. Make sure you click that chat button there and then adjust everything to all panelists and attendees. Unfortunately, we will not be able to hear you, but I will be moderating the chat, taking questions, and making sure that I answer those questions either in the chat or asking Aric those questions so he can answer them for you as well. So we're going to try to have a lot of fun tonight. I want to make sure that everybody here is pumped up and gets a lot out of this. So this should be a really exciting night. Before we get started, a couple things I want to do real quick is I want to drop the links to the next upcoming events as well. So just give me a quick second to self-promote here. On Thursday, if there's anybody out there that's interested in being an online student, so if you're interested in joining the Academy, you want to learn what our online courses are about, how are we running stuff, on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be demonstrating what it's like to be an online student, what the coursework looks like, what the interface looks like, best practices, you name it. So RSVP and join us if you are thinking about being an online student. That's a really cool workshop. And then as always on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., we're going to have our next workshop. We'll be drawing the clothed figure, learning from an expert. This will be held by Chuck Pyle. Just you know, just to be candid, this guy's probably one of the best artists and drawers I've ever seen in my life, anywhere you go. So pretty talented guy doing a really cool workshop, drawing the clothed figure. That'll be at 7 p.m., same time, same place, but there's the link to RSVP for that one. So without further ado, let me introduce you all to the talent tonight, the people that are going to be making this a fun workshop and a fun experience. First thing is supporting me in the chat room for some of your questions, and somebody that I think is going to make this an even better event, and someone that also is just going to know a lot about the program is our director of the industrial design program, Antonio Borja. So a little bit about Antonio. He's going to be in the chat mostly tonight, but just a little bit about him. He is an alumni. He's a 2004 BFA graduate from the School of Industrial Design here at Academy of Art University. So after graduation, he went on utilizing all of his great skill sets that he picked up at the university to be a professional freelancer, and had a career working as a freelancer, worked for General Motors as a creative designer. So later he returned to teach design, drawing, transportation design, and 3D modeling courses. Antonio also led the creation of a group that we have here that focuses on interdisciplinary collaboration. So he's helped us put together programs where students get hands-on experience working with top companies. Some, to name a few, are like NASA, Samsung, Audi, Nissan, General Motors, Jaguar, and a lot more things out there too, but that's to name a few. So in his role, he guides students from the School of Graphic Design, Fashion, Web Design, and New Media, and Interior Architecture to create a holistic view of design for objectives of the client. And as the director of the Industrial Design School, he successfully worked to integrate the latest rapid prototyping, generative design, and visualization methods into industrial design curriculum. And he's very passionate, as you all know, about working with students. So Antonio, if you want to say hello or wave real quick, he'll be here in our chat pod for us as well. So last but not least, what I think makes tonight super cool is this is like all alumni night. So the star of the show, Mr. Aric Armon, he is also an alumni. He is an award-winning professional footwear designer and his demonstrated history of working with sports in the sporting good industry. He's currently working with the Adidas roster of professional football athletes. You probably heard of this guy if you've been on Earth lately. His name's Patrick Mahomes, Derwin James, Tua, Mr. Tua. He's been working with Tua. Mr. Armin also earned a bachelor's degree here with a focus on product design with an emphasis on footwear from the Academy of Art University right here. So he's also an adjunct instructor, an adjunct instructor teaching footwear design. He also enjoys working with young students, mentoring, helping them get into the footwear design profession. And so he'll be the star of our show. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is pass it over to Aric here to get us started. I'll be in the chat with Antonio to answer any of your questions. And I hope everybody has a good workshop. I'll see y'all later.
Sweet. Thanks for that. Yeah, guys, my name's Aric Armon. I'm a designer working on football cleats currently. I work at Adidas up here in Portland, and I've been doing that for about 7 years now. So when I was asked to kind of give this talk, I kind of had to do some reflecting. I kind of put together a little something to show you guys, just to bring you along and show you what my journey was like. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat room, and I'll make sure to comment on them. So go ahead and share. So for me, how I got into this is kind of, it started when I was really young. I was always into sports. I played football, baseball, ran track, and I always drew things or like tried to make things. One of the first things I remember actually designing was like a boat for my dog to swim in the pool because he didn't know how to swim. So I was always kind of tinkering around with stuff and always playing sports, and I always tinkered around with all my equipment, whether that was like my face mask in football or my riding all over my track spikes in track or a bunch of stuff. But that's where my journey started. And I'll start talking mainly around when I was in high school. So that was 2007. I'm kind of old now. It feels weird saying that, but yeah, 2007, I ran track. That was my sport I focused on heavily in drawing. I had a really good art teacher who really let me express myself and kind of work on whatever I wanted. And that was one of the first times I drew a shoe right there on the right, was just kind of looking at the shoes that I had. And there was something that was always really interested me in shoes, because shoes are like a mix of so many different things. It's fashion, it's performance, it's innovation, it's style. It's there's so many different variety of shoes, and anybody could find something they like, but some of them really serve a purpose. And I was always driven to that, and always looked at the shoes I wore and really tried to dissect what made them better for performance. And track is a very performance oriented sport, obviously. A second is a big deal. So anything I could do or look into or research for my shoes, I really started to really dissect what shoes were to me. And then 09. So 07, I was actually going to get a scholarship. And I think everything happens for a reason, because I was going to go to school for engineering because I thought that's what design was. And I ended up hurting my back pretty bad. So I went to junior college. And that served me really well, because I was allowed to kind of find out what it was exactly I wanted to do. And I got my foundations in art and learned how to do charcoal and figure drawing and all those things. And it kind of gave me an opportunity to take a step back, and opportunities presented themselves to me later on. So in 09, I was running, and there was a track team there, and I didn't realize it at first, but it kind of all aligned perfectly. It was Academy of Arts track team. It was the very first year they got put into existence, and I immediately went up to the coach and asked him about everything. And he was telling me about, it's an art school. They're going to be in the NCAA. They're giving out scholarships, and I just lit up, because this is kind of like my dream coming true. And I actually ran that. This is the race I ran that day. I PR'd. I ran 2 seconds faster in the 400. I was a 400 runner, and I got offered a scholarship the very next day. So for me, that was a dream come true. I can go to school and learn about design, and there's not a lot of opportunities in most schools like that. Academy of Arts, the only school in the NCAA that's an art school. So it really just presented me with my dream to come and be able to run and continue my track career, have that help me pay for my school, because I wouldn't have been able to afford school otherwise. And everything kind of came together for me in that moment. It's one of my best moments, and those are the track spikes I actually wore when I got offered the scholarship. So next year, or right when I came to Academy of Art, I was on the track team, became captain of the track team, and I ran the 400. And anybody has ever ran track or knows anything about track, the 400 is a pretty unique race, because it's really about who worked the hardest is going to win. There's no faking in the 400, because it's an endurance sprint. So by the last 100 meters, you're dying, your legs are locking up, and you can't breathe anymore, and there's no more oxygen in your blood, and you start to get this headache. And for me, that translated really well to design, because those shoes on the right are horrible. I look at those now, and I was even contemplating showing them to you, because I don't think they're good. They're not anywhere where I would have thought in today's time I would be like proud of by any means. But at the same time, I'm like, everyone has to start somewhere. And this is kind of where I started. I'd always draw shoes kind of in my notebook. I went and looked at my old notebooks and found these sketches, and it's the same as track. It's like, or any sport, it's about practice. It's about putting in the miles, and eventually you get better. So that was at the beginning of my Academy Art career. And by the end, I got a lot better, thanks to Antonio. He was one of the big ones that helped me with my drawing skills. But I got up to a pretty good point where there was a competition that was at the school called Pencil up here in Portland. It's a shoe design school started by a guy named Dwayne Edwards. He's an ex Jordan brand design director, but he started up a school, and one of my classmates brought me a flyer for this competition. So that's the sketch I submitted for for the competition and ended up winning, getting a scholarship to go up there. And that's kind of where my career took off after that. I was in a shoe design competition where I designed that shoe that I'm holding and ended up winning for the athletic category. Got to interact with a lot of designers. They gave me a lot of good feedback. I got to implement that feedback and create those relationships. And that led me to my internship. So I came up to Portland literally 2 days after I graduated Academy of Art and started my Adidas internship, which was awesome. Came up here, made a lot of good friends. That's Ian over here on the left. He owns a coffee shop called Deadstock, sneaker themed coffee shop up here in Portland. And that's our ramen pop-up. But the image on the right was the very first thing that I've ever designed that actually got sold. And I did that when we were within, my first month or two of working as an intern. Nobody really asked me to do it, but I saw there was a need. So they were looking for stories for baseball. I came up with this story around samurai swords and the folding of the metal in the graphic that makes, because they were coming out with this new bat. So I kind of created the whole story, did the graphic, looked up YouTube videos on how to do that, taught myself a lot, and that graphic ended up getting splattered all across everything. So it was a really good opportunity, and it was kind of shocking to see. That was the very first time I saw something actually going to be sold that I came up with. And that helped me out, and it helped me out a lot. And just me being kind of taking it upon myself to interject myself into that project, because a few years later, I ended up getting a job in originals for a year and a half and worked on some takedown products, some $60, $70, $80 shoes. But then I made the switch back to sport, and I came back into the cleated. And I was actually designing the next shoe that I worked on as an intern, which was this Boost baseball cleat. And at the time, this is 2015, I drew it, I worked on it, was super proud of it. And the thing about the footwear industry, we design shoes 2 years before they come out. So I designed this shoe, and then 2 years later, during the World Series, the Cubs were in it. And anybody watches baseball, that was the time where they broke their 108-year curse that they had on them of not winning a World Series because they told a goat to leave the field one day, and the owner cursed them. And it was a unique experience because I saw my cleat on Chris Bryant, and he ended up being the MVP of the National League that year and played really well. But there's two sides of having your shoe on an athlete. One is it's amazing, it's awesome to see him performing, but on the other side, if that shoe fell apart, it would have been the end of everything, because this is their curse breaking run for the World Series. So they ended up winning, which was awesome. That Cleat helped break a curse of all things. But that was the very first time I saw something I had designed worn by an athlete at that level. So fast forward again. So in 2017, I got to work on this project, and I took over the whole range of Freak for football. And at this point in time in my career, I was really looking to change up my process a lot. And a lot of you guys don't know, but the process usually goes from sketching to prototyping to then marketing tools and creating commercials and those types of things, and doing pretty renders. For this time, I really wanted to flip it on its head and start the opposite way. So we really started with thinking of how to hack the human body. If a human evolved to play football, what would their body start to look like? So it was the idea of that you have cleats kind of growing out of your bones, and you have extra sets of tendons and muscles that really lock your foot down. And it's really just about giving you even more abilities than you had before. That's kind of the goal. You want to extend the functionality of the human bodies when you're thinking of sport and innovation. So we started backwards. So we started with the marketing idea of what this was and recontextualizing what the process for footwear looked like. So we really started with this approach of hacking stuff together, and we created a video and got people on board that way rather than just starting out sketching shoes right away. So we went from that into making prototypes. So this one was it's kind of served as a pie in the sky idea, where we went to the Army surplus store and bought a bunch of stuff, and then just started making stuff out of it. And I put together this gas mask shoe, and everyone who walked by it was just like, what are you doing? Like, you're a crazy person. How does this translate into a real shoe? But it served as like a muse for the process going forward. So from that, then we started sketching on it. And anybody knows me knows I love my Post-it notes. I went through a couple stacks of Post-it notes with just different ideas, different color blocking, and tried to turn that gas mask shoe into something real. So these are the Post-it notes from that process, where we really started to think of like what you needed as a football player to lock your foot down and make you perform at the highest level. And these are just all the prototypes, the sketches that came of it. We started with that gas mask shoe that went into this pullover that was kind of like a prototype, getting the thought process going. And I really wanted to focus on these bands and how they wrap the foot to give you extra support. And the thing about footwear design, in any design, to be honest, is about the prototyping. I had a mentor tell me that we don't design sketches, we design shoes. And they have to exist in the real world and work in the real world. And this shoe actually didn't even work at first. The way those bands came over, they attached from your arch over to your lateral forefoot. And the idea behind that was that there's so much pressure put onto the forefoot when an athlete's making a cut like that, that it would provide enough support. But it actually worked too well, and the shoe twisted around your foot and caused a lot of problems, and we didn't know until we actually started testing it. So I had to rework it and honestly make it work less efficiently. But it did produce this webbing system that attached to the plate and wrapped your foot kind of in an asymmetric pattern to really attack what we were trying to get at. And then we got to verify how that worked. Patrick Mahomes came in. He wears Freak. He wears my cleats. And we got his feedback. We got to do high-speed video. All those dots you see on the shoe are ways that the high-speed camera can tell how much the upper is actually stretching, and if what we are hypothesizing is working, if it actually works or not. So it was really able to like verify exactly what we needed. And there's truth behind that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. And it was really just a great experience to kind of not just be about what I wanted, but be about what he wanted, and make it so that he can perform at his best. So this is right after he won MVP of the season, before this last season that he went. And we really took those insights that he gave us of just like his power that he puts into the ground really needs that support. He needs the stamina and he needs that cushioning, because if anybody knows anything about Patrick Mahomes, he's by fourth quarter, he's off and running and he's doing some amazing things, and he needs to be, his feet need to be healthy and have energy still in them in the fourth quarter when he really needs to make that comeback victory. And finally, and just the shoe itself actually just needed to work with his foot and move. So those were the insights, and then we wanted to attack those with these solutions. So that gas mask shoe allowed us to optimize the system of webbings around the foot to really lock you in exactly where you needed. And then we have Boost, which is Adidas' best cushioning technology. We re-engineered the whole last, which is what the shoe is built off of, to be able to integrate a drop-in boost midsole from the top, so he's standing directly on the boost. And then the actual the pipe that's off of the gas mask we used as inspiration for how we created the graphic and allowed the shoe to bend. And then you see
Aric?
this is go
Hey,
for
Aric,
yeah.
Quick question. So when you're collaborating with an athlete in this particular scenario, how much input does the athlete give on the design as well as the performance of the shoe?
It depends on the athlete. Some athletes are really easy, some are really picky. And as a designer, you have to take into account everyone. Sometimes if you're doing a signature shoe, you can really just focus on that one person and that's their shoe and that's what they like. But so most of the time you have to consider everything and do your research and understand the whole consumer, because that's who you're end up selling that shoe to as well. And sometimes the athletes are older than actually who you're selling their shoes to. Most football cleats get sold to like 16, 17-year-old kids. And Patrick's not that old or that much older, but he comes from a different time. So it depends. It depends, I guess, is what I'm coming at. We listen to what they say. Sometimes they're like, this is butt ugly. And you're like, yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is awesome. And you just run with it.
And last, Gavin here has a question for you. Said, are the athletes' shoes any different than what is sold in the stores when it hits the retail market?
Good question. That's a really good question, actually. Most athletes get custom shoes made. It's pretty rare that they wear something off the shelf. And that's because basically they can ask for it and they need it. Everyone's foot's a different size. They have different shapes. Some guys have low arches, some guys have high arches, some guys want more cushioning. So we actually have a whole department that will take the off-the-shelf model and reconstruct it and build it exactly to the athlete's foot, and stretch it out in certain areas if they have bunions or they have injuries. It happens a lot in the NFL because a lot of those guys have really messed up feet from all of their years. So they all have specific needs. Great question, though. So obviously, if anybody pays attention to football, Patrick went and won the Super Bowl, got Super Bowl MVP. And for me as a designer, that's a sport that I loved growing up. I played it growing up. And to see, I even wrote in the old diary of my goal was to be in the Super Bowl. And obviously that didn't happen, but to have my cleats be in the Super Bowl and win and beat the Niners, which I'm a Raiders fan, by the way.
Oh,
so
man, don't rub it in again.
It got really exciting for me just to see that happen, and be able to be a part of that moment. And it also, around that same time is when I started teaching. I started teaching kids, started teaching at Academy. And I actually ran these kids, my students at Academy through this project. And then to see it kind of come to fruition almost a year later, half a year later, was kind of impactful to me. And it's kind of set me on this journey. So that's it. That's my journey of how I got to this point. I'm working on a lot of new things. Got some shoes that aren't out yet, obviously, that will be out soon. And they're all building off of this whole idea and keep iterating, keep being creative, trying to new ways to be creative, all of those things.
So Aric, I have a couple questions. So we have a question from Armando. He asked earlier in the chat, said, how long were you an intern for at Adidas?
I was an intern for 6 months. Their intern program at that time looked a little different. Now it's a lot bigger. And it's during the summer. I came in January and I was there for 6 months. Yeah, and it was good at that point too, because I got to work in every single category. I got to work in basketball, football, running, baseball, lacrosse. Anybody who needed help, I was able to be around and be a fly on the wall. And I definitely learned a lot during those 6 months.
And I have a question from Ashley here. She said, are shoe designers given limitations as to how much science and engineering is used when designing a shoe?
That's a great question. Yes, definitely. Certain categories, not as much. Like if you're making a lifestyle shoe, there's testing and you have to make sure the shoe doesn't fall apart or a bunch of things like that, and it's comfortable. But in football or any sport category, science is the biggest partner. We get insights, we have data, we have high-speed video, we have different machines that test the cleats, and getting into this category, that was one of the biggest things to learn, because I actually enjoyed it because it's objective, right? Like there's truth behind it. If it either works or it doesn't matter if somebody thinks it's going to work or if somebody thinks it's cool. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. So yeah, we have a whole, at Adidas, we have a whole department based around this, where Futures comes up with innovations based off of those insights. They test them, they work with manufacturers or the factories to make samples and start thinking of ideas. Then it gets run through a full line of testing with, like I said, there's bend tests, making sure that it bends in the right spot. There's wear tests where people wear it for a long period of time. There's fit tests where it's different people come in and try on the shoe and see if it works for them. And that's like the biggest thing. That's honestly how I make most of my changes, is just based off of the science that's telling me to do so.
And so Madison has a question for you. She says, what do you do when you have a creative block?
Damn, you guys hitting good questions. That happens all the time. I mean, nobody's immune from that. That's I was actually, before working on this project I just shared with you guys, I had a huge creative block. And the thing I always tell people based off of that experience is switch it up. Like just do something different. As soon as you start doing the same thing over and over and it becomes repetitive, you start getting the same repetitive results and you start doing the same thing over and over again. Switch it up and start making things with your hands. Start prototyping, shoot from over here and see how you bring it back. It's really about making things with your hands and switching up your process. Based off of the way your brain works. Like, to be honest, there's people I work with who think in the exact opposite the way I think, and everyone needs to figure out what works for them. And if you're a person who thinks very analytically, like, works that way, if you want to express yourself with paint and do all types of crazy things, that's perfect too. There's no one way to do it, and switching up the way you've done it just to get a new experience usually refreshes everything up and gets you to a new place pretty easily.
So, I mean, there's a lot of good questions. I'm going to try to get to as many as possible. Ross has a question. So you got your foot in the door with the industry through the design competition. What recommendations would you give to get someone their foot in the door in the footwear industry?
Man, there's so many different ways. It's really about like just being tenacious about it. Like, the footwear industry is pretty small. There's only a couple hundred footwear designers in the US and a couple hundred more in the world. So it's pretty small. So you really have to find your way in any way you can. And going through that process, I see a lot of people who give up or think it's going to be easy and think it's just one thing they need to do. It's not that. It's literally going over and over and over again, and just keep knocking on the door. And even through that process, you might not even be ready at the beginning of that process, but you keep knocking on that door, you keep doing competitions, you keep sketching, you reach out to people in the industry and ask their advice about certain things. And then you use all of that to get better, and you build those relationships through that process. And eventually one of those doors will open and you'll find your way in. But there's people who got their way in this industry by a million different ways. So it's really just doing the most you can and using every opportunity within that to get better.
And Aric, so this is like, I know that we have a lot of similar questions about that. And I mean, I'm lucky enough to host these events every week, like nonstop. And I always find that the common theme with people that are doing very well in their careers is that they literally just work to the bone. They're passionate about it. So even when you do have these creative blocks, it's your passion is what's driving you through those valleys when you get back to those peaks. And it's like, you've been lucky enough, like, I feel like you're blessed by the sports gods to design for, like, championship wearing athletes and things like that. But I'm sure there's those times when you go into those valleys. Like, how do you mentally give yourself that stamina to continue to design and continue to push forward?
it's funny. The truth behind that is actually the people I'm around. Even when I was in school, you surround yourself with people who are passionate, and that wears off on you. And even if you're feeling down and you feel like you can't do something, just being around other people who are passionate and are driven and have different ways of thinking, and you share your ideas with them, that builds it up pretty quick. And it's hard. You can't be. I can't stress that enough. You are who you surround yourself with, and if you're not around people who are building you up, then you're not in the right place. So, when you hit a valley like that, that's what kind of helps you remind you of your passion and sharing. And I've even been recently having this valley where just me teaching has given me more energy to work on the things that I work on. Because when you tell somebody how to do something, it kind of re-sparks in your mind how to do something or how you would do something. So just having relationships with people, I think, is one of the biggest drivers behind that. And I think the second part I wanted to reiterate with that whole idea is it is a lot of work. Like, nobody gets in this industry, nobody does these things without putting in all those miles. Like, you see the work at the end, you see the fancy whatever, but that usually comes with thousands of hours beforehand. It's like Bruce Lee, right? You put in thousands of hours before you become an expert, and nobody sees those things. So it's not, some people want to just hop in and think they can do it right away. It's not about that. You really have to put in the time and effort. Like, Patrick Mahomes didn't become Patrick Mahomes out of nowhere. He had to throw that ball thousands of times. So if you want to get into this industry, or any industry, to be honest, as a designer, it's about putting in those thousands of hours, those thousands of sketches, and just working your way through it. And through that process is how you get there. There's nothing magic about it.
And I have some other questions of, I think relating, but I think that the essence of the questions is the design process for footwear similar to the design process of apparel or fashion or anything like maybe relatable? Are there different processes in your opinion, or similar?
I think it's similar. There's definitely some crossover. I think the thing with footwear that's really interesting, why I was drawn to it to begin with, it's one of the most multidisciplinary fields to get into, because within footwear, there's fashion, there's art, there's science, there's hard design, like creating outsoles and midsoles where you're actually sculpting, and then there's soft good design where you're like creating patterns of the upper and how it wraps the foot, which is similar to apparel with pattern making. But there's a lot of similarities. I actually took the footwear design class at Academy of Art in the fashion department as well, and I learned a lot from that. And also, when I started working, I was in originals at first too, and you learn a lot about just how to be creative and how to design subjectively, which is kind of hard because everyone has a different opinion about what looks good. But you really start to develop a sense behind that. So yeah, I think there's definitely crossovers, but there's major differences as well. And I think the science part is big, and there's science within performance apparel as well, which is another route that not a lot of people think about, to be honest, of how to design uniforms or athletic apparel.
So Aric, you have a World Series championship, you have a Super Bowl. What are you aiming for next?
Man, if I had to have the next thing on my mind, it would be a gold medal. I think that'd be pretty sweet, especially since I ran track. Like, if I were to design a sprint cleat that won a gold medal, I think I'd be pretty happy. But honestly, I think the bigger thing now is like, it stops being so much about that, and once you get to a certain point, it's more about sharing that and allowing other people to take over. So actually, I'm like, one of the things I'm working on currently is getting kids to design Patrick's next cleat, and being able to share that experience that I had and allow other people to have it, because it is a pretty impactful thing, and to share the love and show people how to do that is become my big thing that I'm pushing for now.
Yeah, what inspired you to go back and kind of, lack of a better term, give back to teaching?
Yeah, had some opportunities to do some teaching early. For like 2 years ago, I went to Adidas has this partnership with Liberty City in Miami, and I was able to go there and show kids how to design shoes, and that was a life-changing moment for me, just because those kids, nobody's really telling them that they could do something like this. They don't really get exposed to jobs like this, and most of the time people tell them, their only way out of a bad situation is to be an athlete themselves, and it's hard to do that. And as soon as that doesn't happen, there's not a lot to fall back on. So we kind of went there and showed them all the other ways that they could be successful, even if sport is their passion, and just to open those kids' eyes up to new possibilities for them, and giving them a big head start. Honestly, like, I didn't know how to do a shell pattern until I was 22, 23, where these kids are learning when they're like 6, 7 years old. So they already got like a 15-year head start on me. So hopefully if they stick with it, they'll be the next kid designing for the Super Bowl champ,
Nathaniel said, do you feel any pressure in designing the next cleat or footwear?
Yeah, there's always pressure for sure. If you can't, it's funny when you're like I said, I mentioned with Chris Bryant, like, you have to do a good job. Otherwise, like, these people's careers are taking a hit, and you kind of have you're a part of their future. Like, if the shoe fails or they don't like it, and they don't, their foot hurts when they need to make that cut, they might not make that play that wins them the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of pressure on that. But luckily we have like a big team. There's a lot of people that go in behind making these things happen. There's a lot of science behind it, a lot of people helping out. So it's not just on me, but to come up with the next concept, it's definitely a lot of pressure, because we have to be better than we were last year. And it's actually been helpful, because once we start doing some of these things and you start to get things working, like that cleat was, the next one, which I can show you because it's actually out, but you guys can see it. This is the next one, and we just started with this cleat, which is the one from 19. So the one that came out this year is taking a lot of those things and keeping what's right and evolving what's wrong or what could be improved. So it made this cleat a lot easier to design, honestly, because we had a lot of good stuff in that one, but we wanted it to be lighter. So it became, all right, how do we do those same things, but in a lighter weight package? We had the drop-in midsole, but like, all right, we designed a new plate that put it on the inside and reconstructed the whole upper to wrap around that, so you really feel the boost even more so. And we increased the amount of boost within this by like 50%, but reduced the weight by like 30%. So it makes the next thing easier when you start to get wins and you can start building on those things. It's kind of like an iteration process. It's because what's going to work. So then it's just like, all right, where can we improve next? Where can we improve next? So that takes a little bit of the pressure off, to be honest.
All right, so I think I'm going to interject here, and I have read some of the questions earlier on as well too. Hector, thank you. You're doing an awesome job, much better than I could have of throwing these questions at Aric. But one of the things that I'm seeing in a lot of the questions is the fact that some people, it seems like they're a little bit apprehensive because they feel they don't have the skill set or they don't have the talent to draw, quote unquote, naturally. It's something that I can tell you as an instructor now for the last 10 years. I see students come in, and it's not the ones that have the best natural ability to sketch that are going to be the best at the end. It's the ones that actually are dedicated and, like Aric said, are passionate about it and surround themselves with like-minded individuals that are at the university to succeed. So this is something that I see, throughout multiple generations of students that come through the academy. It's again, the ones that are willing to put in the time, make the sacrifices. They're the ones that are definitely graduating and going to the next level. And so with that, as long as, again, you have the drive, you have the grit, you understand it's a process. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. I think you'll be coming to the right place and joining a university to become a footwear designer. Or, as Aric said, I mean, there definitely are other avenues, but, that's one of the things that, we're really proud of with our students is the fact that, we try to give them all the tools necessary, including bringing in top talent from industry to teach them. And, we're fortunate, again, now it's a full circle. It makes me smile because Aric was one of my first students when I first started teaching at Academy. And I just remember him, in his class, they're a very close-knit group. And, now to hear him, give a talk about, all his different successes in the industry. And also, we're very fortunate that, he was kind enough to come in and co-teach our footwear design class, which he co-teaches with another alumnus. And, he takes time out of his week to fly from Portland to San Francisco to teach these students. And, I can't thank him enough for that because it's one of those things where I know he really cares. He really cares about the next generation of footwear designers. And so with that, I don't want you guys to feel like it's something that is going to, you either have it or you don't. This is something that, like he said, like the 400, it's who's going to work the hardest at it that's going to come out on top. So I think with that said, Hector, if you don't mind, I'd like to transition over to the demo, Aric, that we all been waiting for. I know we're all excited to see. So, and then, maybe as more questions come in at the end of the demo, we can throw a few more questions at you.
Sounds good. Sweet. Everyone sees this, right?
Yes, sir.
Looks good.
All right. So I'm just drawing on my iPad right now, which I'm sure a lot of you will ask what I use. Ever since I got this iPad, I got the pen, and I've used that way more. I have a Cintiq as well, but this has been the best because it's more portable. And the program is Procreate. So mark that if you care to. But we're gonna do a little bit of a freestyle because I think the thing with footwear design is it allows for a lot of creativity and a lot of range. So I just want to kind of go through that process with you guys and ask you to throw out some things. So let's start with, I don't know, think of a category of things like, well, I'll start with the category. Let's do animals. Figure out an animal to be inspired by.
Sarah's requesting a unicorn.
Sweet, unicorn it is. All right, in a sport, it could be a weird one. It could be something else.
You're getting a lot thrown at you. Tennis, cricket, volleyball, climbing, lacrosse, soccer, boxing.
Soccer. I want soccer.
Soccer. Well, that makes it easy for me because I already designed cleats, but we can do soccer. All right. So I'm sure all of you guys out there have pen and paper next to you. If not, then you should, because you're looking into art school. You should always have pen and paper. But grab that, and then I'm going to run through like a quick demo on just like how to draw a shoe and what the starting points are, and then we're going to use that going forward. So let me see. Let me just create a new thing so I can delete that later. All right. So when you're designing or drawing a shoe, you start with a straight line always. It's just what it's the ground line. If you draw it out in space, it's going to look weird and it's going to be all misshaped. Just start with a simple line. All right. And I'll do this first. So what a shoe is actually built on is a last. So a last is basically like a simplified foot. And so we'll start with that. So you start with the toe spring. You draw it up a little bit, and then the heel comes up, right? So you got that going. And then I start with the heel. So you do this S shape. And then I move over to the toe and I draw a little toe. And then usually shoes, you kind of have this flat piece, so you could draw kind of a straight line about to here where this point is. And then you start kicking it back up. All right, so that's what the shoe is kind of built off of. So once you kind of have that established, then you can start drawing your shoe over the top of it. Okay, so I'll start from the bottom up. So you got the tooling, which is like midsole, outsole. This is the molded components. So that comes up and meets. And then you got the heel part. You see how it's starting to make a shoe. And then this is called a top line of the midsole. So you could do a lot. You could do anything you want with that, really. You can have it clean. You can have it jut up in the forefoot and be whatever shape. So you could just draw whatever shape you want, whatever you think looks cool. I'm gonna bring it up something like this, because why not? So once you got that, then you start drawing the parts of the shoe. So you can start, depending on how your shoe is constructed, we'll just keep it simple for now. So you have your eye stay, which is what you lace through. And then you have your ankle top line is what it's called. And this starts to establish the silhouette of your shoe. So that's basic, pretty basic. And then most shoes have a toe guard or something. And then maybe a heel counter. These are basic shoe things. And then we're gonna have an overlay of an eye stay. So something like that then we're gonna lace into. So I usually keep my laces pretty simple because we're just thinking of ideas right now. And then one thing that makes a shoe look really realistic is a small little trick. You just add the lining in there. This is like the soft part of your shoe, and it just starts to make it look like a real shoe. And then the tongue. All right. Then you can start adding other details. You can be like, all right, I want this little thing here. That's a little mesh window. And then I'm gonna put a little heel pull up here. And actually, I'm gonna make a double one, because why not? And then the outsole, I'm gonna make it come up in the forefoot a little and then come down. So there you go. That's a shoe, right? Is it the best shoe? I don't know, probably not. But that's kind of just the general basic idea. So now I'm gonna start working on this unicorn soccer shoe. So what are some things here? I'm gonna cheat a little, just draw my shoe. I cheat, so I usually start with something like this. So it's a soccer shoe. So I don't know, what's really interesting with the unicorn is the horn, obviously. And where could I put a horn that makes sense for soccer? I would say here, like what if the plate came up and created this horn design? All right, put that little unicorn texture on there. What else does a unicorn have? It has a mane. I'm gonna put the mane back here. And what's important about these is you guys had talked about like sketching and your artistic ability. And the thing with sketching, especially like ideation sketching, it's not about like creating a render. It's not about being super accurate, making it look all shiny. It's really about the ideas and using drawing to come up with ideas. So that's something that's lost on a lot of students or kids coming into this industry. It's not about how well the shoe looks, it's about how good the idea is. Because again, we're not designing, nobody's buying our sketch, they're buying the shoe. So use that to get to someplace new. So I'm gonna keep this as like a tall booty construction because it's gonna look clean that way. All right, and then there's, you know, it's a cleat, so I'm just gonna draw some cleats. that comes up. All right, so there's part one. What else has a unicorn? Antonio, what else does unicorns have on it?
Rainbows.
Rainbows, perfect. All right, where are we gonna put this rainbow at? All right, so there's gonna be a rainbow tongue piece. Is it Roy G. Biv? There you go. And then it's important as a designer to know when to stop, because you could easily do too much, but we can start doing the colorway of this. So let me see. I need red. Roy G. Biv, right? Let me grab my paint. Red. Ooh, too big. Red, blue, no red, orange. Yellow. G, green. How do I not have a green? Oh, let's pick that. Blue. And to go. Oh, all right, so there's our rainbow. We got some. I want this to be, I want people to know exactly. So this is obviously getting us to a point where we might be inspired by a unicorn and make a unicorn soccer cleat. But the thing I really wanted to show you guys is like I said, this is just an idea. There's some things you might look on this and you might be like, that's dumb. I don't like the way that's looking. I like that. I like the colors actually. I think that horn detail can be improved. So then you just start coming up with a bunch of ideas based off of that. So you do a really quick sketch. I'm gonna keep this simple, more thumbnail based, because I just want to come up with ideas quick. So I like this shape. And then I think the main, this time I'm gonna try it. Like what if it was up here? And I'm gonna do a low top this time. And then the laces are gonna go through the main. And I'm gonna do a different, I'm gonna keep the top line pretty shallow, but I'm gonna shoot it up tall in the back. And it's just really about coming up with ideas based off of that original idea. And this time I'm gonna do the rainbow heel back here. You kind of sit back, you look at it, judge it for yourself, start a new one. All right, maybe, I don't know, where else am I put it? Maybe I'll try the unicorn in the back this time. What else do you need for soccer? Oh, maybe the rainbow is actually like a kicking zone thing. So you have good touch. And it kind of gets bigger. And then we keep laces on it. Forgot to draw my cleat this time. All right, I think that's like probably a little bit better. I like the idea of using the rainbow to signal like where you kick from. Maybe add a little other details just to fill in some space. Maybe that's a little molded piece. All right, on to something. Start the next one off. Yeah, I like this, like where this is headed. So put that horn back. This one I might go a little bit more detail in because I have a couple ideas. I'm liking the direction of certain things. So I'm going to, I like the big booty. Big booty. That's what that's called. When it's shoes a sock, it's called a booty. And then I'm gonna do a cool main thing that's gonna stick out the back of here. So I like that it added to the speed. And then the rainbow touch. Isn't there a rainbow kick in soccer?
That's a rainbow kick.
When it goes over your head, I can do that. Sure. It's rainbow.
Yeah, so when the ball goes over your head, Aric.
You roll it to the back of your heel while you're dribbling, and then you chip it up with your back heel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what this could be, right? Like we're talking. I'm just drawing. I'll draw the ball first. You got the hexagons there. You know what it is. Soccer ball. So it's the rainbow kick. That's what we're talking about. And I might add some more little details. I think so. If this is part of the plate, you want it to work with the foot. So here's where your kind of ankle is. Seems like it would kind of hug your foot where you want it to in the negative space. You start adding like with this. You draw these little lines just to add some shading. And Tony's gonna hate me for how messy my hatching is.
No, it looks amazing, man. I like it. Got a good flavor to it.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm gonna keep some laces, but only kind of at the top because I want more room for kicking. And I'm gonna add some more details. So if this is like a knit shoe, there's gonna be different textures of knit. There, maybe you need some like a airy knit in there for whatever. And then I might as well start. All right, I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna start designing. I like this idea, so I'm gonna start figuring out what this shoe looks like from the bottom because it's a cleat, right? So that's probably really important. So this is something that a lot of kids get trouble with, but I'm gonna show you a really easy way to how to draw a bottom of a shoe. So you have your heel, so you can draw a light circle. Then you have your balls of the feet. Right, the one on, so this is what the shoe looks like if you tilted it, right? So you have your shoe and you tilt it down, this is what it starts to look like. So then you have your big toe area, and that's kind of where everything leans to. So actually the longest part of the shoe leans towards the medial side, which is the inside of the shoe. Medial's on the inside, lateral's on the outside. And then you just kind of draw all those lines together. The great part about sketching too is like nothing doesn't matter. Like you can fix what's wrong. Like I see some things wrong, like this actually needs to come out wider. But you start to get things that might be even happy accidents. Like, I don't know, this line might turn into something. Then you have this, actually I'm gonna make this a separate piece now. So the unicorn horn, maybe, you know, because this connects here, if we extend those lines down. So maybe the unicorn graphic carries over to the bottom to like highlight the heel. And then you have your studs, so we just start laying those in. Maybe there's a big one for your big toe. And one here, one here. And then actually, this is a good opportunity to bring back the unicorn idea. So unicorns have hooves, right? Like, what does a cleat look like if they had a hoof spike in the back? Like, does that help? Probably gets too much stuff caught into it, but maybe that just serves as like the layout for the studs. And then what else? All right, maybe we just want to start figuring out what this looks like. Maybe make it work with the foot, since we already have our balls of the feet in here. You know, maybe bring this line up here and it kind of something like that works with the form of the foot. And you got your big toe. Maybe that turns into an idea. All right, then we go on to something now. So I kind of like the way that bottom looks. I'm gonna delete this one because it's in the way. But I'm gonna move to the top of it. So it's the same. These are called orthographics, by the way. It's basically uses a lot in design and engineering to figure out what something looks like in all different viewpoints. So you can lateral, top, bottom, medial. Sometimes you draw it like that, heel, toe. And that just shows exactly, it shows every angle that your shoe is going to be in. So we basically take that same approach to how we design the bottom view. It's the same thing, just other side of the coin. So we're flipping it up. So now our big toe is over here. We got the balls of our feet. We got our big toe. Let me just connect those lines. So yeah, so this is the lateral side. So the lateral side is usually kind of straight, where the medial side, you have an arch. So you can really sculpt that in. All right, that's the top. So then you start bringing these lines up. So that's your opening of the shoe, right? This is the inside of the shoe.
Hey,
This
Eric.
is probably, yeah.
Hey, could you label some of the terminology on your drawing, like the lateral side, the this and that, just for the people kind of getting started here?
Yeah, for sure. So that's the lateral side, right? That's the side you see. That's the money side of the shoe. That's like what sits on the shelf. That's what shows off. That's what you see when somebody's wearing them. That's usually where you start. Not to say that you have to start there. Sometimes starting from a top view or a heel view gives you a new perspective. It might make you come up with new ideas, but these are all things. So we got the top, all right. So we got our laces kind of up here. I'm just gonna draw them quick because it's more about the idea. And then we got, so this is, the rainbow is actually coming from the lateral side, which is this side, right? So this side is actually what this side is showing. So the rainbow would be over here. So we got the rainbow touch. Got the heel mane that, you know, comes out over here. And all right, now we have to start figuring out what all this other stuff is doing. So you got that shape, which is this shape, and then going over here. And I kind of like the idea of asymmetry for this because it's already a crazy shoe, so why not? So why don't we bring this over and create this weird toe piece? Maybe we like that, maybe we don't. But it's like some of you soccer players might be like, that doesn't make any sense, but it's okay. Probably did a lot more touch on this side, actually. But yeah, so that's the top view, how you construct that. And we might as well do the rest of the views. So the front view, I usually just extend that ground line out. So this will be my front. This will be my heel. This is also called the toe view. So usually what I do with these, it's pretty simple. So I just start with this shape. So I draw like this kind of weird triangular shape because this is where your big toe is. And this is taking into account this toe spring. So you draw this kind of weird shape. Then you have the outside and the inside. And your ankle usually is over here. So I'm gonna bring this up. And then I'm gonna draw the ankle just like if somebody's wearing it. Because why not? I didn't get my height right. So there you go. So this is the lateral side. This is the medial. Yeah. So this is actually where the tip of the toe is, kind of like right here. So just draw that so I know where I'm drawing from. Got my laces up top. And then I got on my lateral side, I got my rainbow. So you can, what really helps with these is to have a shoe on hand when you draw your shoes, because it helps you understand a lot, and everyone has a shoe. So you can literally turn the shoe towards yourself and you start to see all these things I'm talking about, right? You see that toe spring, you see how everything's kind of positioned towards the medial side, and you have your laces, and you can really start to use that as reference for when you're drawing your shoe. So you can see like the way that rainbow would look from the front, something like that. And what else? Yeah, that's it. And then, so it's the same idea with the heel. So draw straight lines to keep everything in line. And your heel is kind of like a ball. Pretty simple. Start with a circle. So that where the ankle is, bring that over here. There you go. And then finish it off. So then you see, you're going to see a little bit of this unicorn horn wrap around. How to do something like that. That's the unicorn. Just bring that over. So that's the plate. I'll add the studs over here too. I got the unicorn over there. What else? Oh yeah, my main. Actually, I don't like that. So I'm gonna make it look a little more like it's flowing. And it's okay to be messy because we're just coming up with ideas at this point. So now we got that. And then I like it. But the other thing that's really important with drawing when you're designing is to call out different things. So I'm gonna start putting notes. So I'm gonna say hoof. And this is important because most of the time you're the only person that ever sees your sketches. You only present where you came up with. So when you're going back and reviewing your sketch, you need to know what you were thinking. And I would have forgot all about that hoof idea if I didn't take a note. So you take notes like that. Say horn. It'll be like, this is actually gonna turn into my hero. It's like the rainbow touch. Okay, that's kind of it. And then I'm gonna get this one out the way too, since we don't need it anymore. And then the last thing that I usually do is, like, once I have a solid idea, I want to convey what that idea is and show what, have this sketch represent an idea. So I really like that rainbow touch, right? So this is the scary thing with drawing shoes, is drawing a 3/4 view. My only opinion on this and how to get better at it is to draw a bunch of them. And I've been drawing the basic same 3/4 view since I was in college. So once you kind of get it, it's just muscle memory. But I draw this shoe kind of in action so this is the ground. This is the bottom, obviously. Then that same S curve works its way up. And then the toe spring, and then I add my little toe. And that's the top of the foot, and then it kicks up again, like we talked about, and then something like that. And usually I get it wrong on the first time. So I'll go in there, like, I think this toe is looking kind of fat, and I like mine to look a little sleeker. So I'm gonna redraw this line a little lower. And that's a little bit better. I can live with that. And then you draw your center line, which is if you cut the shoe down the middle, which is, I'm gonna say it ends up over here. Bring that up. I got my sock. So I literally draw this shape every time I draw a shoe in action. And I have some more, but I would use reference a lot more if I do something like that. But
Hey,
since
Aric, when you said this is the hero part, what is that? Is that a terminology thing as well, as far as like a focal point of the shoe, or is that?
Yeah, so footwear design is important because you can easily have too much going on. And even in this shoe, I probably have to get rid of some things because cost is always a driver. So the thing about shoes, like let's say $100 shoe, usually costs between $20 and $25 to make. And that's what the margin is. And that's so everyone gets paid. Adidas gets paid. Foot Locker gets paid. Everyone gets paid. And there's room for things to go on sale in the future. So you really have to focus in on one area and allow that to be the hero. So you put all your money into that piece. You let that drive your story, and it helps keep things simple too, because you're not just adding things just to add them. And it really helps to bring the focal point to what you want people to pay attention to, right? So for this shoe, it's the rainbow, because obviously that's going to be called out with color. That's the color blocking. That's what you're going to remember the most on this shoe. And on a soccer pitch, when all the fans are in the stands and you're 100 meters away, 200 meters away, they'll be able to see that shoe from that far away and know what shoe it is. And then sports is really important that people know what shoe that person is wearing, right? Because that color blocking needs to be iconic and stand out from everything else. So when somebody sees Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl, he knows it's Adidas shoe because it's the logo, and he knows which shoe it is because of the color blocking. So that's usually how it works. And then, you know, I have my shadow up here because the foot is up in the air in the heel. So now that I have that built out, I'm just gonna start drawing my shoe. So I'll start with the rainbow again. Cool. I got my unicorn support in the back. My little heel clip. And then I just usually just kind of fake these, put them in places that, you know, kind of make sense. All right, cool. And then I got my laces. For these, I might take a little bit more time and figure out what the laces are going to be. So I'm going to do a cool shape like that, and they go in and out of the booty. So that's usually what they start to look like. And people at work always make fun of me because I like to just do stupid laces just because I can. Like they're flying. So that's the other side of the lace. Then you put this little piece on there. That's called an aglet, if anybody cares. And then let's start. Okay, that's pretty much it. And then I have this other little piece. All right, so there's nothing fancy with this. I could go in there deeper and do like renders, which I might do at a later point. But for the sake of this, something like this, I'd probably do 100 times before I get to a point where I have enough content to really start to decipher and figure out what I want to take from this ideation process. Because there might be like one thing where I'm like, all that might come out of this shoe is the rainbow. Or people really, when in a design review, they're like, dang, that unicorn horn is really sick. I really like the way that's showing up. And that might be the hero. So yeah, it's just all part of the process. Put my little mane back here again. A little bit of texture. Right, and then when I start, I erased that on accident. And then all I would do is, this will be easier. Call out, I should make a new layer so it's underneath. Am I tripping? No, I messed up the order. Can't mess up the rainbow order.
It's great to see you go through the whole process, and definitely to me it was awesome. Just again, it's always awesome to see other people sketch and their thought process as they go through different ideas. So really, thank you a lot for being. I wanted to jump in a few times, but you're doing such a great job of just going in there and really telling us what you're thinking. And one thing that I like a lot about the sketch as well too is the fact that you're doing your nice call outs there. And like you said, there are a lot of times when you're sketching, you're throwing down ideas, and you want to make sure that any gem of idea that you could potentially use later on, you call it out so you don't forget about it. So really awesome workflow.
Yeah, it's about the ideas. I think that's what gets lost on a lot of kids, because I see a lot of portfolios and beautiful renders that are amazing and have all the highlights where they need to be, and they spend a lot of time getting it right, but then the idea is horrible, and I'm like, that just doesn't work. And I can tell you didn't really put a lot of thought in how it works, and you didn't make any prototypes to figure out how it would work. So like, that's just a huge red flag to me. It's just like, it's not about how pretty the design is. It's more about the process and how you got there and what you figure out along the way. That's what gets you into this industry, or most industries. Is not how well you can render, but it's how well you can think. One of the designers I hired that works underneath me, he was horrible at drawing. He went to Stanford and U of O, which are more theory-based, I guess, industrial design programs. But that's a drawing's a learned skill. He draws better than I do at this point, and but we hired him based off of the way his brain worked, and he actually made things with his hands to figure out how it worked. And that's what you're trying to figure out when you're hiring somebody into the industry, is how well you can problem solve, what your process is, if it's an interesting process, where you got your ideas from, how you work through an idea over the course of multiple iterations. That's what makes you a competent designer, because once you're in here and you're working on things, there's a million different reasons why something doesn't work. It might not pass testing. The shoe might twist, and you need to figure out solutions and work through them. And it doesn't mean your first sketch or your first idea is the final idea. That never happens. They always go through a huge process where you have to figure out costing, money. You might have an idea that the factory can't actually make. There's all these millions of different things that it's why you get hired and makes you a competent industrial designer. So focus on those things, of the idea and how you get there, and being able to talk through that and bring people along the journey. And that's going to make you a better designer and make you use your brain while you're sketching, because otherwise you're just drawing lines and they don't mean anything.
Yeah, for those of you guys, that may not know a lot again about industrial design, that's one of the things that we always try to profess to our students, is the fact that really, again, like Aric said earlier, no one's going to pick your product over another product at the store because it had cooler sketches. They're going to pick the one that actually works the best for them. And so, being empathetic to who you're designing for, in this case, we're designing for a soccer player. That's like the first step of design, having empathy for your user. Then after that, you have to have logic behind your proposed solution. And then at the end of that, then you can add the aesthetic that is appropriate for the brand, and also that's appropriate for the user. And then only then, when those three elements come together, do you have a good design. So like I said, it was awesome to kind of see you go through it. I'm gonna take on Hector's job here really quickly. Dante has a really good question that I think, Aric, you can answer. What's the feedback process like between you and other designers?
Yeah, that's a Great question. It's really collaborative, honestly. Like at least when it's working well. The design studio in footwear is kind of unique because especially the way we have it set up at Adidas, everyone sits in the same room. So I sit in a room with the designers of like graphic designers, of color materials designers, and then the footwear design team. And we have walls open up, very similar to the wall behind me, where we pin up all of our things, at least pre-COVID. And that's how we talk and present through ideas. And it's really open and it's really awesome because you own projects, but that doesn't mean that other people won't draw on your stuff or you won't draw on other people's stuff. And that's how ideas get better because, like I said earlier, like everyone's brains work a different way. In the perfect design team, there's no two people that are going to be the same anyways, but you have to take that into account when you're building a team. So there's like me, for instance, I would say I'm very prototype driven, coming up with ideas, functional solutions. And there's other people who are really good at like, we have a painter. He never was in this industry before that. And he approaches every graphic design element of the shoe in a very different manner, whether that's like using gunpowder to blow up stuff on a piece of paper and scanning that in to get a graphic or whatever. Everyone's brain thinks way differently. So it really becomes like a mesh of ideas. And then we have kind of a mind dump of people with all different perspectives that came from different places that contribute something different. So it's really awesome when it comes together. And you're never going to finish and work on something all by yourself anyways. So it helps to have people who push you in that way.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Again, I do want to reiterate, what we discussed earlier. Again, is just having the passion for this, having the passion for footwear design, having the passion to look at the world and always think how you can make it better. To me, again, those are the natural makings of an industrial designer. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with how well you can draw, how well you can visualize things. There's many different processes now that can help us when we want to visualize our ideas, whether it's in sketch form or whether it's making a prototype or doing a digital model. So, but at the end of the day, like Aric says, it's the idea that's really going to, sell you as a designer. So that's definitely would be the thing that I would tell you guys to focus on. Sketch a lot, but look at the world around you and be curious. And see how things work and ask yourself how things can be made better. I think that's definitely a natural thing that, if you do that, it'll lead you again to have a very creative mind and a very creative workflow.
Definitely.
Hector, you want to jump in? Any other questions that I didn't catch?
I mean, there's tons of questions. I would only emphasize the collaboration piece. I know somebody asked a question, I think it was Quincy, that said, do you present your sketches? Do you present your artwork in these types of programs? And from somebody who doesn't work in design, I would just emphasize that, like when Aric said I hired that designer, the communication piece might be the most important part in the hiring decision when you're hiring anybody. Because there's tons of talented people out there that you just don't want to work with because they're too difficult to work with. So I would tell you, whether you're a designer, you're working at a school like me, or you're a dentist, a lot of the times you're going to pick people that are good at communicating, that they're willing to take feedback, they're willing to listen. So I would tell you that the design part is a huge part of your education, but the reason the school does that for you is they also want to prepare you to be a professional. And there's tons of different things that we do to prepare you, not just with your design skills, but your soft skills, because that's going to be a huge part of your employability. I don't know if you want to speak to anything that you guys do and to prepare people to that capacity, Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, for us, what we like to do very early on is, how the students work in teams. And Aric knows this from going through the program, and I myself as well. again, the idea that it's a one-man design team that is going and creating all these things that we enjoy, these products that we have in our lives, just simply isn't true. It's always a team that brings this together. So that's one of the first things is, again, knowing how to be a good team player. Also knowing how to take feedback and separating yourself from your work. It's one of those things where, you definitely need to understand that when you're giving feedback, don't take it personal. It's just to make you better. And I think that's one of the toughest things for young creatives to understand. Is like they tend to take feedback as critical to themselves as a person, but it's just critical of the work. So the sooner you can separate yourself from your work and really just look at it objectively, that's when you can really start to see the growth in your own work. And because, again, you look at your things objectively. One of the oldest trick in the book is we tell people, stand in front of the mirror with your sketches, because then your brain doesn't recognize them as the sketches that it made. So all of a sudden your brain starts being a lot more objective of those sketches, and you start seeing a lot of issues, whether it's proportion, perspective, so simple little things like that is, things that we'll cover in the class. Obviously, in addition to giving you both the soft skills and the hard skills to be able to communicate your ideas. And at the end of the day, I think, Hector, you hit it right on. It's about communicating. He who communicates his ideas has a voice in this world. And the person who doesn't, they may have the best ideas, but if they just keep them up in their heads, they're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's especially true in the footwear design industry, because you learn pretty quickly that everything's been done to some extent. It's just new ways of packaging it, and being able to communicate it in a new way and kind of reintroduce something is very important, because there's now, at this point in time, millions of shoes that have been designed. So to come up with something new out of that, it really is just about how you tell the story, and the storytelling element of what you're creating is even more important, because that might be where some uniqueness comes out, that might lead and get somebody to really care about what you're designing. And then I think the other part of this that's important. I know some industries are very it's let your work speak for yourself, and that's it. But I can speak to the footwear industry, and that's not it at all. It's more about who you are as a person and what you bring uniquely to any team that you're looking to join. So really being able to highlight who your interests, like I said, there's painters on my team, there's people who love cycling, there's people who geek out on random things and have all these different backgrounds and have their own things on the side. That is why you get hired into this industry, is your unique perspective and how well you can communicate who you are as a person, because that's what's going to make you stand out from all the other shoe renderers out there, is just who you are. Because that's what we try to find in every time I hire someone or bring somebody in, or looking, how a team can be rounded out, is who that person is and if they're a good addition to the team. Because nobody wants to work with an asshole, to be honest. And that's something you learn really quickly. Is when you do have to work with somebody who's not great to work with, you will never hire a person like that again. So don't be an asshole and be unique.
Cool. Thanks for saying it for me. I appreciate it. Hey, another question for you guys, and this is more just me talking. I know that textiles are a huge component of footwear design. So how much did you learn in school about different textiles as it's related to design, as it's related to performance? And my second question is, I noticed that, shoes are actually moving into like sustainable and recycled materials, and they're pretty hot right now. Is that something that you're constantly trying to keep up on with Adidas, of saying, hey, like, we want to factor in these textile designs into our new footwear as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first part, how much did I learn about textiles? I learned a little bit about it when I was in the fashion group, but just about materials. I learned a lot more when I came out here to Portland, and they have at Pencil, that school, they have a materials lab. So I learned about all the different materials that go into footwear design, whether that's textiles and meshes and wovens versus knits and leathers and synthetics and TPU, hot melts, and there's so many materials in shoes. and you learn a lot by just looking at shoes that are existing and looking at the ways they're utilized. So I would suggest that to anybody to go and just start looking and use your brain to figure out why that's there and what purpose that's serving, to really start to learn and dig deep on what textiles are. But that's a huge part of the job. We have a huge material library. Every shoe I design, I have to go in there and spec all the materials. All the materials have different costs, obviously, different processes, and you have to build the shoe to work with the materials. Obviously, they go hand in hand. So that's a big part of it. And then as far as sustainability goes, Adidas is huge on that. We have a partnership with this company called Parlay, where they take out plastic from the oceans and then spin that into yarns. So in football, it's one of the biggest things. The shoes I'm designing now are 100% made from Parlay ocean plastic. So we started that like 3 years ago now. I designed a football cleat completely made out of the ocean plastic. And that's now all the shoes that we make are made from that plastic. So it's really big because the footwear industry obviously has a lot of waste, and we make a lot of stuff, and a lot of what we make ends up in landfills, right? Especially in sports where, stuff gets used and abused, and the next season you get a whole new pair. So you really have to take that into account when you're designing something. It's the footprint that you're leaving. And the parlay is great because it's two birds, one stone. You're taking it out of the ocean and making something new out of it. And then it's interesting because it's all the material is able to be recycled again after that. So it's solving like both problems at once. And that's a big part of what we do. We change all our materials over to Parlay.
Oh, that's awesome. It's awesome to see that, that's one of the things that I think, both Adidas and a lot of other companies overall, I mean, in different industries, we're starting to realize that, our resources here on earth are finite. And, so we need to be a little bit more respectful of using virgin materials all the time. So it's great to see that. And I think as a designer, I mean, how do you see that as a new design challenge in the sense that, these materials may have a different behavior than you're used to with some of the materials? And how do you also, look at those and take advantage of the fact that you are using sustainable materials and maybe that you can do different things with them that you couldn't do with, just pure materials? Would you be able to speak to any of that as well?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has different properties. We have a materials team that's done a lot of work, kind of bring it up to the standards of our like virgin materials. So it's not a big headache. For me as a designer, I kind of get presented with those materials and then I have to work them into my design. So it's more of a starting point for me of just like, all right, we have this parlay mesh. All right, I know I can't do certain things like have a raw edge because it's gonna fray everywhere. So I need to design the eye stay to lock that in so it doesn't happen. So those types of things you have to work with just from the very beginning, knowing how to work with those materials. And then we do a parlay shoe, which I can maybe share. Let me see. I'll pull it up so you can see what I did. So I just did a Google search of it, but this is we did this with the University of Miami and launched it. But we redesigned the whole shoe to incorporate that ocean plastic. So it's actually spun into threads. So we used an embroidery machine to create the graphic. So this is actually made from fishing lines, like the nets that get left out into the ocean. And that's where the color comes from. But we spun it into yarn and then embroider it across the whole upper. So it's how do you use sustainability to create performance. So that graphic is based off a lot of the science that we got on where you need support and how the shoe needs to flex. And then we placed it accordingly and played off of the blocking of the shoe to create that graphic. So it creates a lot of opportunities to be able to tell a lot of stories through sustainability. And that's one of the hard things is you can definitely hide it in there and nobody will know, and that's great, but also being able to tell it so people know what it is and understand why it's important, and to change the consumer behavior around buying things, so that's a benefit to them and they would pay more money or pick this product over another just because it is sustainable. I think that's the main design challenge in how we do those things. It makes sustainability cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, somebody had asked Ashley out there, just said, you know, how diverse is the design industry today?
That's a really good question. I'm actually doing a lot of work in this. It's not diverse, to be honest with you. It's a very corporate, old, white guy industry, and it always has been. And there's a lot of initiatives coming out right now. I'm pushing a lot within Adidas to bring more people of color, Black people, Latin people, Asian people into the industry as a whole. It's a huge gap, especially the higher you go up within the company. And you know, that's something I'm pretty passionate about. And shoot, man, if you Google me, you'll see stuff pop up. But there's a lot going on in the industry right now and changing this. And that's why I'm getting into teaching so heavily too, because I'm really passionate about bringing more people in of color into this industry, because it's the only way it really works. Most of our consumers are diverse, so our industry should be diverse as well. And I'm trying to train up as many people so they don't have an excuse that they're not out there, and really pushing for that change to be within the industry as a whole and creating different avenues for that to happen.
Next question.
A lot of people are appreciating your honesty.
Yeah. I think Kim's also asking a question also regarding about women, especially in the athletic shoes. Is it male dominated?
Yeah, very male dominated. It's kind of interesting the way it comes out. Apparel is very female dominated and footwear is very male dominated. And that's the other big push too, is to bring more women into this. There's only a few, to be honest, within the whole industry, especially within, I mean, there's a lot more in fashion, obviously, but in the sports industry, it's very male dominated, and there's other programs in place right now to bring more women in. There's Adidas Seed program in Brooklyn, where they're training up a group of girls right now to take over the jobs within footwear industry. But yeah, it is a very lacking for women. And it's honestly, as a woman, getting into this industry is going to be a lot easier just because there's such a need for that. So the women who are out there doing performance shoes, like, keep knocking on that door even harder, because we need those spots to be taken up by women.
Hey, I have a question for you, Antonio.
Yep.
So, okay, so I'm guessing right now there's about 85 people on and they're hanging back for a little bit. So this is the one thing that I find is that there's probably 85 people out there right now that are like, I want to do this. How do I get started? And I think a lot of times people go the route of, what can I be practicing? What can I be practicing? And I know you hit on this earlier, which is saying, hey, our school is designed to teach you whether you're going in to your first bachelor's degree or if you're going into your first master's degree, where you don't have to have experience. But I wanted to see if maybe you could talk a little bit about maybe some of those people that are thinking like, this is a pipe dream. Aric is 1 in a million. That's, you know, and Aric, you probably are 1 in a million, man. But the point being is that, you know, how do you get that courage to take the faith and actually say, hey, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to ride this thing out. Maybe even for both of you, what inspired you to say, these sketches are not a dream. This is something that I'm going to bring into reality, if that makes sense.
Aric, you want to start with that one, or you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would say, like, I wouldn't have gone into like other art schools, just because, you know, I kind of found what I wanted to do much later. Honestly, like my second year in college is when I kind of even found out what industrial design was, and I was kind of lucky that things fell into place after, and I got to Academy of Art. But it's like I said, like drawing and all those skills are skills that you develop through practice. It's the same as if you were to play a sport. Like you're not going to be LeBron James just because you said you wanted to be. You have to go out there and shoot a lot of shots and have coaches around you that teach you how to do that and can give you feedback on how to be better. So that's the thing I really appreciate about Academy of Art and Antonio was like, you can have any starting point, but you are given the skills and the practice to get to where you want to go. And that could happen anywhere. You can do that in a million different ways at a million different schools. But yeah, I would say that was just my journey of like not knowing how to do a lot of this stuff and coming and taking classes and being in the studio and being surrounded by other people who are also on the same path and the same journey, and being able to feed off each other is what really helped me and kept me going.
Yeah, so I mean, like I pretty much second that. I mean, even myself, is my journey is kind of very similar to Aric's as well, in the sense that I told my high school counselor, it's like I want to be a car designer, and sure enough, I was recommended to join the engineering program, and I started that, and basically went down this path for 2 years of pursuing engineering, and then I found industrial design and realized like this is what I want to do. I want to be a car designer, so I joined the industrial design program. I was by no means the best sketcher or anything of that sort when I first started, but I can tell you I worked at it harder than anyone else, and that quickly changed within about a year and a half. But again, I mean, I knew I really wanted this. I knew that I had to put in the work, and I made no excuses for it, and I just got to work. So, to those young students out there that are kind of looking at Aric and looking at other working professionals in the creative field and saying it's just a pipe dream, it can't happen. I can tell you absolutely not. I mean, it's something that if you put in the miles, it will pay off. That's something that, I mean, we can even talk to one of Aric's classmates, Aaron Gould, who just recently launched the Ford Bronco. The Ford Bronco interior was his as well too. So here's, two of my students that when I first started, we were practicing how to sketch cubes. I don't know if you remember that, Aric. Cubes, cylinders, right? The primitives. Everyone's like, oh man, I have to draw another triangle. But what does that teach you? It teaches you proportioning, which you guys saw today with Aric. The proportioning that he did for his footwear was on point. But that didn't happen from him just saying, I want to draw a shoe. It happened from him practicing over and over and over again. So if you look at the world and you ask yourself, how can I make things better? And then you have a plan of how you can make those things better and you take action on it. That's really all you need. Because like Aric said before, the skill sets and all that, that's something you learn. But really that natural curiosity of you as a designer, of you at looking at the world and saying, I can make it a better place. That is really what, will dictate and indicate whether you're going to be a successful creative designer. More than anything else, more than your current drawing skills. So I would say don't be intimidated by that at all.
Yeah, for sure. That makes me think about, I don't know if any of you guys are athletes too, or thinking about joining Academy Art's athletic program, but I think the thing that drove me the most, that probably drives a lot of people, is when somebody tells you can't do something. I remember coming into Academy of Art, and it wasn't necessarily the warmest welcome from a lot of the fellow students, and some faculty, to be honest too. It's just like, why do we have sports here? The curriculum's too intense. Had people in the hallway telling me I was there because of their money that they're paying, and somehow I got there because of them and not on my own. And I really took that as an opportunity. There was a kid in my class that said something along the lines of like, you know, I don't know why we have sports programs. And I overheard that, and I made it a point to outwork that dude every day, you know, and you know, I'll be traveling on the flight or being in a track meet in Idaho or something. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do extra sketches. I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna come into class. And that person who said I couldn't handle it, or why do we have sports programs? Because, you know, there's not enough time. I made a point to be like, well, I'm gonna show you how to do it, and I'm gonna do more than you. And now what's your excuse? So that really helped drive me. And it's the same as sports. Like, you know, is whoever wins is the one who worked the hardest. You know, hard work beats talent every day. And I really want you guys to understand that too. Is like, I'm not trying to sell a pipe dream. You're not guaranteed a job in this industry. But if I can convey that, you know, if you work harder than everyone else and you look at everyone else and you're the one working the hardest, I can pretty much guarantee you're the one that's going to get the job. So keep that in mind, whether that's in this industry or any other one. That is the one thing you can control, is how hard you work and how much time you put into it.
Yep, I think that's the truth. So yeah, so don't be intimidated by that. Again, you know, I think really that's what we're looking for, is creative individuals, people again that really look at the world and have an innate draw and passion to want to make it better. I mean, I think if you have that, you know, that makes a true industrial designer. And then from there, you can go into these multiple fields that are, you know, honestly, you know, my first day on the job when, you know, going into General Motors, it's like you pinch yourself, like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Like, it's just, it feels so great. But then at the same time, you start thinking, well, look at how much work I put into it, you know? And I think, again, you know, I think that's one thing that you can take away from both of us, both Aric and myself, and what we're telling you guys today is just, if you're going to put in the work, if you have the dedication, it's not a dream. It can become your reality, but you have to have that. So, you know, Hector, I'm not sure if there's any other questions coming in here. But go ahead.
Well, I said usually we'll once we end, I'll usually hang back to take any last questions or things of that nature too. So Ross here had a question about advice for a grad student, and I told him I think that it's really just working with a passion and working with a purpose. He just asked, what's the best way to develop your portfolio?
I got really good advice. So the portfolio I had before I left to pencil was trash. I did not do a good job of keeping track of all my work, and putting it into a format along the way. I kind of waited till the end to do that, and I regretted it heavily. That being said, once I got to pencil, I got some really good feedback, and it was that not every project needs to do everything. It needs to highlight a specific skill that you have. So I reworked my whole portfolio to, like, I had a project that was like based around engineering that I really showed, like, I knew how to do blueprints and stuff like that. I had another one that was like really short, but it showed like my ideation process. I had another one that showed my use of color and materials. Like, they don't all have to do a lot, and that helps a lot because it shortens your portfolio drastically, because you're not trying to explain every single thing. And when you're working and you're explaining your portfolio, it makes it really easy to run through. And if somebody has a question about something, be like, oh, great question. Actually, I approached it this way in this project. And it helps summarize everything. And then the thing that got me my job, a lot of people told me to take this project out. It was I took a footwear design class at Academy, and I kind of already had some other shoe projects, but I did a zombie apocalypse shoe, and it was just one page, and it opened up my portfolio. But I'm not even lying, like 3-4 people who were helping me with my portfolio told me to take it out and said that wasn't necessary. And that's what got me the job, because it was just a one-page thing. And I made it yellow because my thought process is like, zombies have blue eyes because they have cataracts, right? Their eyes are deteriorating, so their whole world's yellow. So yellow is the perfect camouflage for the zombie apocalypse. And then they're like, yeah, that's it. And then they hired me based off of that story. Didn't even care about all that engineering stuff. So find something unique to open with, and then have every project kind of have a reason for being in there that you're trying to highlight.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And then another thing I can add to that, which, you know, Aric spoke to right now, was the fact that, you know, get help with your portfolio. Don't just put it together yourself and just keep it to yourself until you show it, you know, in an interview. It's like you have your classmates, you have, you know, your instructors, you have, you know, your directors, you have industry connections, which nowadays, you know, honestly, I encourage you guys to, you know, have a professional Instagram account and have, you know, LinkedIn account and showcase your work. You know, definitely curate it, but like you can get a lot of feedback. I mean, even like forums like 477, Behance as well, you know, post up your work. And even again, if you may feel like, oh, well, I'm not ready to showcase my work, you'd be surprised. Like, I mean, we, again, as industrial designers are just naturally want to help people. So even if you're at the beginning stages, someone's going to reach out and lend you a hand and say, hey, here's some tips that you can take to make your stuff better. So definitely, again, it's about, you know, communicating your ideas to the world, getting feedback on them, and then taking that feedback and improving your work. And as long as you're doing that, again, you're going to get better for sure. All right, let's see. So I think, again, for me, you know, I really just want to thank you again, Aric. I mean, it feels really special to have you here today. And honestly, you know, I feel very privileged again to have you teach at the Academy and have you teach our footwear class. Along with Aaron as well too. So, you know, I'm really excited for the upcoming semester. I know it's going to be a challenge. You know, to me, I just see this as another design challenge that's in front of us with the COVID situation that, you know, we have to be remote. But like I said, I look forward to seeing the awesome work that's going to come out of the class. And I look forward to seeing how you guys are going to, you know, definitely make sure that the students get what's necessary for them to have some nice marketable pieces in their portfolios. So, but again, all in all, man, it's just, we're really proud of you. You know, we're really proud of you and having you as an alumnus. Me, again, personally, just again, I just reminisce back to, you know, when we first started and you know, teaching the perspective class and design drawing one and the at the old church, and just you know, all the fun that I had with teaching your cohort of students. So like I said, I couldn't be more elated today, and it's really special again. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for getting me to the point where I was hireable. It was good times back then, for sure.
No, it still is. We're still having good times today.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's just a little different parameters, but we'll persevere. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
All right, Hector, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just wrap it up. So hey, in the chat, guys, if you guys want to say a big thank you to the team, some behind the scenes people you probably wouldn't even know were there. We have William Louie. He helps run our marketing team and put these together. We have Wakana here. Mr. Tim Lewis over there knocking it out on YouTube for us. John Beeson helps arrange all these events. Antonio, Aric, you guys are amazing. And last but not least, the one that's always on late at night, Miss Kathleen. She puts these on for us literally every single, man, Tuesday, Thursday. Kathleen and I spend more time together than I do with my family. So I really do appreciate the whole team for putting these on. These are awesome. Hey, so I'm going to bring it home with this, folks. So a little bit about our process, just so you understand, is that we would love for you to apply to the school, become a student, but that process is also a little bit of a journey. What we like to do is we like to have a one-on-one with our students before they apply to the school or before they actually enroll. What we like to do is sit down and really just get to know more about what you're looking for, where you're at, and just have more of an open one-on-one. And usually it'll be about an hour conversation. But what we're trying to do is just understand you and understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what your goals are. And we want to be able to look at any portfolio work you may have. Even if you have nothing, it's okay. But if we can understand where you're coming from, we can give you the best advice on what major makes the most sense, when to start school, how financial aid works, all of those things. We try to do everything up front so that by the time you start school, you can just be focused on learning and being a student, not trying to put all this stuff together. So procedurally, I would tell you the first step is, if you can, just send me an email. Please, even if for just self-esteem purposes, send me an email and say, hey, thanks, it was a good time. But what we like to do is just connect you with somebody to talk in more detail. And I don't want to speak for Antonio, but I've done this before where I know he's always been willing to talk to a student if they have specific questions or things that they want to basically get to understand before they make that commitment. So I would just tell you all, the word commitment is a key word to all of this. Like, you can't date the idea of being a professional and survive this type of a journey. You have to go into it saying, I'm going to give up Netflix. I'm going to give up all types of different things that are distractions. Aric last night when we were doing a run through said one of the best things he ever did for himself was he got rid of his Xbox. And I know that sounds silly, but that's what I would tell you is the difference of being like fully tunnel vision on your goal and going as far as you can and putting in that effort, because that's what really matters most to you. And I would tell you that these journeys are going to require a sacrifice in a lot of ways. And it's really sacrificing your time, your energy, your attention to becoming a professional. So I would tell you your first step is try to set up an appointment where we could sit down one-on-one, talk a little bit about yourself, what it is you see yourself doing, and we can go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in a few links here for everybody. Also, we have some scholarships that expire on the 15th. So if you're looking to start school this fall, we can still help you to get started this semester. We will be teaching all of our courses online, whether it be our traditional online or through a Zoom, where similar to what you're seeing today, it's just set up more in a classroom format. But obviously due to COVID, we're not offering traditional on-site classes. We will as soon as possible, but just for the safety of the students and staff, we're going to be running this, which is no shock to anybody. I know we're all in our living rooms right now just being like, this is the new norm. But when we can get back to normal, we will. But for now, we're making the most of it. And these courses have been super successful. So I would tell you, don't shy away. It's better than sitting in your living room all the way until February, till the next semester. Try to get started as soon as you can. So I'm going to put a couple of links in here. Anybody out there that's interested in applying to the university, I'm going to go ahead and put this link in. Once again, either give me a call, give me a holler, and we'll sit down and do a one-on-one, or you can obviously do an application to the school. If there are any students out there that are in high school, if you're currently in high school, you have not graduated, your class of 2021, 2022, etc., we also have a pre-college art experience program. I can tell you, if you're still dating, that is probably the best thing you could do. We offer courses for free. So if you're in high school, you get a chance to dabble with different design courses, get your feet wet, and start figuring out what it is that you want to gravitate to professionally. But we offer that to our high school students as well. So last thing I'm going to leave off on here is, once again, I'm going to drop my email in, and I can't urge you all enough. Please take the time, send me a quick email so we can open up some two-way dialogue and just figure out how we can help you to get started, or at least give you the best advice possible. So I'm going to, without further ado, basically just tell everybody good night, be safe. Once again, thank you all to the staff that put this on. Antonio, thank you so much. Aric, man, love your work, love your story, so inspiring, man. As a big sneaker guy, I was like probably more locked into this workshop than anything, man. So cool. I hope I see the unicorns out there on the shelf one day. I'm doing a lot of shape soccer, but you know, I'll still rock them to represent, man. So super cool. But hey, everybody, be safe out there. I hope to see you guys on Thursday at the online event, or next Tuesday when we're talking a little bit more about drawing the figured clothes, the clothes figures. So everybody else, be safe. Have a great night. I'll hang back in the chat here for some questions after we're done with the recording, and just do a little overtime with you guys. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Hector. Thanks again, Kathleen, John, Tim, everyone. Thank you, guys. Aric, always a pleasure. Look forward to talking soon.
We will.
All right. Take care.
You guys.
Have a good night.